Hello swimmers and non-swimmers, one more video that I'm making today. You might hear some rain on the car. I'm just sat facing Morecambe Bay. This time it's about a man from Keighley called Kendall Mellor. By all accounts a very strong, fantastic swimmer. Now the first time I heard about this man was somebody gave us a scrapbook earlier this year with loads of cuttings and pictures and stories from the 1950s onwards, all about swimming in Morecambe Bay. It's a fantastic thing we've been given. But in this, I first saw a picture of Kendall, and you know, sometimes a picture summons up a word or a feeling, and the first time I saw a picture of this man, it was just, if it summoned up any word, it'd just be strength. He looks like a strong man. A very big, tall man, but he just looks like a strong young man. You know, he's got close cropped hair. He looks a bit sort of, I got the feeling he looked a bit of like a military man, that kind of look about him. Further digging did prove me right that he had actually been a military man in something called the Coldstream Guards. They're supposed to be a very tough group of people, the Coldstream Guards, and I think it's said that the motto for them is nulli secundus, which means second to none. Obviously something that applies to this man. He was from Keighley apparently, and somebody said after all these swims there was a plaque put up at Keighley Baths with his name and somebody else's on, and I think someone said now that plaque is in possession of his wife, who's still around. She's got the actual plaque with his name on that commemorated his swims. In terms of swimming in and around Morecambe Bay, I think he took part in one, maybe two cross bay swims from Grange to Morecambe, and some of the inshore swims up and down the coast here. But the most impressive swim he did around here, there was a swim put on one year by invite only, so it would have only been really good, credible swimmers, from Lancaster to Morecambe. Now when I read that at first I thought, well, how do you swim from Lancaster to Morecambe? And apparently the route, it started off St George's Quay in Lancaster, which is pretty close to the centre of Lancaster in the River Lune, and that part of the River Lune is the tidal part, which fills up with the sea and then it empties back out into Morecambe Bay. So apparently on that day Kendall and the other swimmers would have swum down the River Lune as it emptied out towards Glassendock, an old port. That's not, you know, that's quite a swim in itself, winding down the river towards Glassendock. Once there, they swam out towards something called Sunderland Point. Now that's like a peninsula that sticks out into the sea. It's got some houses on, and every day it gets cut off completely from the mainland by the tides. It's quite a remote, desolate place. It's very muddy round there, and treacherous, and I don't think many people nowadays would want to swim anywhere near there. But apparently on the day they did just that. They swam out towards Sunderland Point, where the River Lune empties out into Morecambe Bay, and it says that the conditions were really tough. All the other swimmers, who were obviously very credible, strong swimmers, had to call it a day. I think they were being hit by lots of waves and water, some struggling to get into a good breathing pattern. I think one of the support boats oars snapped on one boat, and every other swimmer apparently apart from Kendall Mellor had to get out and call it a day. But not only did he swim down the River Lune in these conditions towards Sunderland Point and out into the sea, he then had the job of swimming all the way up the bay, which is no small swim, all the way up past, you know, what's a caravan park now called Ocean Edge, the power station, the harbour, Heysham Village, Sandylands, the Battery, the Midland Hotel, and on to the stone jetty where he would have finished. And there's actually a picture of him in this scrapbook on the jetty wrapped in a towel. But he does look like a big, tall, strong man, and apparently that probably helped him on this swim, you know, to stave off the cold and the conditions. But when you look at Sunderland Point right down the coast towards Morecambe, it's a very remote part of Morecambe Bay. There's not much there, there's not much to see. It's exposed to the wind and all kinds of stuff. And you think he would have been plodding up that bay swimming in those conditions with a small, probably wooden boat next to him. And you think if that boat had got into trouble or difficulties, he's basically out there by himself. And I think the whole swim took him 7 hours 45 minutes for 21 miles of river and sea swimming. It also says online, I don't know if it's called the Menorca Channel. There's a channel between Menorca and Majorca. Apparently he was the first person to swim that. He swam the English Channel. Now, I did try to track down Kendall Mellor to see if he was still alive, to have a chat with him. Very sadly, he passed away some time ago. But with a bit of digging, I was put in touch with his daughter, who's very nice and filled me in on some of his life. She said when he did his channel swim in the English Channel, he did some of it with a dislocated shoulder towards the end of the swim, having swum into his own support boat and damaged his shoulder. So that just tells you something about how tough and durable this man was and how committed he was to finishing the swim. I think he did plenty of other swims, probably did Windermere, some of the lakes. You know, he's got a good list of swims behind him. Obviously a very strong, confident, dedicated swimmer. Seems to have been a very nice family man as well. Everybody I spoke to on a Facebook page for Keighley remembered him, has such fond memories of him. You know, all talking about how great a swimmer he was, what a good man he was, how supportive he was for other swimmers. So he sounds like a genuinely good guy. And apparently his wife used to come and watch him do all his swims. I think his wife's still alive. And yeah, I think he's become a bit of a hero of mine. I would have loved to have had a chat with Kendall Mellor. But you know, he's joined quite a few people who, again, he's not from Morecambe, he's from Keighley. And he's come here and contributed massively to the history of swims in Morecambe Bay. And you know, I can't say enough good about this guy. The swim he took part in is just one hell of a feat of endurance, you know, amongst many other swims he did. So a big salute to him, and RIP Kendall Mellor.